The JBL Charge 5 has been one of my favorite and most used speaker for the last year. It's a mid-size speaker with a decent battery life and a woofer, tweeter, and dual passer radiator setup. Honestly, you can't go wrong with the Charge 5. But then there's the Sony XE300. If you're looking for a mid-size speaker and you're trying to choose between the JBL Charge 5 and the Sony XE300, let's see which one's right for you.
Now first, let's talk about price. The Sony XE300 has a retail price of $200, whereas the JBL Charge 5 has a retail price of $180. But both of these speakers routinely like to go on sale. The XE300 can be found routinely on sale for $170, whereas the Charge 5 can be routinely found on sale for $150. Price aside, the Charge 5 easily outperforms the XE300, which is just a muffled mess. And personally, I just can't recommend the Sony XE300. Nonetheless, if you want to pick either of these two speakers up, they'll be linked down below, or you can press on the YouTube shopping button. Just give it a try. And if you want to further support the channel, check out the merch shelf down below. I've made some shirts and hoodies that look and feel great. And if you've been watching me for a while, you know I can be very particular. So I'll only set my name on something that I'm really proud of. Now first, let's talk about the design of these speakers. First off, the XE300 is noticeably larger than the Charge 5. So, taking the XE300 on the go with you, or chucking it into your backpack isn't going to be as easy as with the Charge 5. Something that I think is important to consider if you're thinking about getting a mid-size speaker like this. Now, durability-wise, technically, the XE300 wins because its passive radiators are covered, whereas the passive radiators on the Charge 5 are exposed. But other than that, both of these speakers are rocking an IP67 rating, meaning that they're both water and dust resistant. And both of their bodies are going to be able to stand up to constant abuse from bumps and scrapes. However, personally, I feel that the mostly fabric wrap body on the Charge 5 is going to do a better job of looking new for longer, because the mostly silicone wrap body on the XE300 can be a scratch magnet. But overall, design and portability wise, the Charge 5 is my pick here because it is noticeably smaller and it's also very rugged. You just have to be mindful of those exposed radiators, which have never been an issue for me when I travel with this speaker.
Now, when it comes to tech specs, the XE300 has an advertised battery life of 24 hours, but that's with the speaker playing at 50% volume, which is very quiet because the speaker does have a warmer sound signature to it, and that's while the speaker is playing with the stamina mode turned on, which is going to severely reduce its bass, making it sound super flat. Or if you were to use the speaker with its stock EQ, which is how you should use the speaker, then it's going to have an advertised battery life of 14 hours. But real-world use with the speaker playing at 80% volume, and while in its stock EQ, the speaker is good for about 8 hours of playback time. However, since the speaker is so quiet, I do expect most people to use the speaker at a higher volume, thus draining its battery life faster. But then there's the Charge 5, which has an advertised battery life of 20 hours, and that's while this speaker is playing at 50% volume, which is already a decent listening volume. But real-world use with the speaker playing at 80% volume is good for about 10 hours of playback time, which is not bad at all. And 80% volume on the Charge 5 is noticeably louder than 80% volume on the XE300. Now, when it comes to connectivity, both of these speakers can be connected to two devices at the same time, so you and a friend can both be DJ. And when it comes to audio codecs, the Charge 5 has support for SBC and AAC, very standard. Whereas with the XE300, it has support for SBC and AAC, but it also has support for Sony's own LDAC, which is their own in-house high-res audio codec. Now, whether you're an iPhone or an Android user, AAC is going to work perfectly fine. However, if you do want to take advantage of LDAC, you do have to be an Android user. And keep in mind, if you do decide to use LDAC, that is going to take an additional toll on the battery life on the XE300. But unfortunately, you can only use either of these two speakers wirelessly because neither of them have an audio jack. Now, even though both of these speakers do have USB-C ports, these USB-C ports are strictly used for charging. You can't use either of these two USB-C ports as a wired connection, like you can with the USB-C port found on the JBL Extreme 3. However, the Charge 5 does have a USB-A output so that you can charge your own devices, whereas the XE300 no longer has that USB-A output. Now personally, I don't really care about the USB-A output on the Charge 5 because I feel that most people aren't even going to use them because most phones these days now just come included with USB-C cables instead. Personally, I would really like to see both of these companies just drop the USB-A output and instead include a second, more versatile USB-C port that will allow us to charge our own devices and also use it as a wired connection.
But now let's talk about actually listening to music with these speakers. Regarding speaker setups, the XE300 has a very standard speaker setup for a mid-size speaker. It has dual frontward firing woofers and dual passive radiators that shoot out its sides. Whereas with the Charge 5, it also has dual passive radiators that shoot out its sides, but it has a single frontward firing woofer that handles the mids, and it has a single frontward firing tweeter that handles the highs. And having this type of setup really helps with instrument separation. But let me just show you. So like you may have just seen, with the XE300, both of its woofers are handling the mids and highs. Whereas with the Charge 5, the woofer is handling the mids and mid-lows and the tweeter is handling the highs. And this helps the speakers sound much more open than the XE300. But now we're going to jump into the sound test. Both of these speakers are playing with their stock EQs. However, the Charge 5 is playing while at 87% volume. And with the XE300, it's also playing at 87% volume, but so that it can have a chance of keeping up with the Charge 5, we're also going to use it at max volume.
Wondering how to make a play all night, looking your way from out of sight, thinking I should ask if you're doing alright. You weren't easy, so hard to ignore. Pull up on your right, ask what you're drinking, ask what you like. Said you look good in the dim bar light, so damn cheesy. Who'd have thought you'd fall for somebody like me? When you asked my name, I panicked, so out of my league. And your body was so magnetic. Before I knew it, we talked and I think about you, a cocktail. You told me that you've been waiting for somebody like me. Took you out and showed you the city. How'd you let somebody so pretty's what they said to me? Yeah, that's what they said to me. Well, they told me I didn't stand a chance, yeah. Face value, had you at a glance, yeah. But nobody ever asked if you could dance, yeah. Well, only one who did that was somebody like me. When you asked my name, I panicked, so out of my league. And your body was so magnetic. Before I knew it, we talked and I think about you, a cocktail. You told me that you've been waiting for somebody, somebody like me. You told me that you've been waiting for somebody like me. You told me that you've been waiting for somebody, somebody like me. Somebody like me.
Now, first off, we're going to have to adjust max volume performance on these speakers. Like you may have just seen, even at max volume, the XE300 was struggling to keep up with the Charge 5 while it was playing at 87% volume. In general, the XE300 is a quiet speaker. Combined with the fact that this speaker has a warmer sound signature, this isn't the best speaker out there if you want to use this speaker outdoors on a regular basis. Whereas with the Charge 5, this speaker gets noticeably loud for a mid-sized speaker. It doesn't leave you wanting more like the XE300 does. Now, with both of these speakers, I did find that if you use them while they're plugged in, you will technically get a performance boost out of them. But it's so small, I doubt that you'll even notice, because I barely did. But max volume aside, the Charge 5 is simply a better sounding speaker as well. Like I mentioned a few times already, the XE300 is a very warm sounding speaker and it can sound shallow. Whereas with the Charge 5, it's a much more balanced sounding speaker with stronger mids. Now you can go in and raise the mids and treble on the XE300 so that it doesn't sound as warm. But even still, the XE300 just doesn't have nearly as good SMN separation as the Charge 5. And also, the Charge 5 has harder hitting bass that also resonates cleaner than the bass on the XE300. So overall, when it comes to sound quality, the Charge 5 easily outperforms the XE300. It has the better instrument separation thanks to its dedicated tweeter and dedicated woofer, and it simply gets noticeably louder. Now, overall, I like how the Charge 5 sounds with its stock EQ, but you can customize it to your liking, and this is something that you couldn't do when this speaker first came out. So if you want more bass, you can do that, or if you plan on using the speaker outdoors, you can raise the mids and trebles so that it can get a little louder.
But finally, let's talk about pairing these speakers up with other speakers. Now, the Charge 5 is using JBL's Party Boost, meaning that you can pair it up to other Party Boost speakers, like either a Boombox 2, an Extreme 3, another Charge 5, to a Pulse 4, a Flip 5, or to a Flip 6. And you can also pair it up to the upcoming Boombox 3 and the upcoming Pulse 5. However, you cannot pair a JBL Party Boost speaker to any of JBL's older speakers using JBL Connect Plus. And also, you can't pair your smaller Party Boost speakers to any of JBL's larger Party Box speakers. But then there's the Sony XE300, which is using Sony's Party Connect, meaning that you can pair it up to other Party Connect speakers, like either an XG500, XG300, XE300, XE200, or to an XB43, XB33, or to an XB23. And you can pair it up to 100 speakers together, which is obviously overkill because at that point you might as well just buy yourself a sound system. However, with Sony's Party Connect, you can pair your smaller Party Connect speakers to any of Sony's larger box speakers that are also using Party Connect, like either a Sony XP500 or a Sony XP700. The only thing that you need to keep in mind here is that you can't pair any Sony Party Connect speakers to any of Sony's older speakers that are using wireless party chain. And with both JBL and Sony, if you want to get left and right stereo sound going, you need to have two of the exact same speakers, or else your speakers are only going to play in sync. Now, overall, Sony's Party Connect is very accommodating and it gets the job done. But it is not my favorite speaker pairing protocol out there because it can be a hassle to use. Now, first off, with the XE300, it no longer has a physical button on it to activate Party Connect. You have to use the app, and this app just isn't as streamlined. Also, it can sometimes take forever to get these groups going, and sometimes when you're trying to connect all of your speakers together, all of your speakers won't connect. So you're gonna have to go through the pairing process multiple times, and sometimes echoes do form. Now, Sony's Party Connect does correct this echo after a while, but it's only a matter of time before this echo comes back. Whereas with JBL's Party Boost, it just works. You just press a button on each speaker, they'll all get synced up, and then they'll just start playing music. So if you plan on getting multiple speakers, and if you plan on constantly pairing them together, then JBL is the way to go. And personally, I dread any time that I know that I have to pair my Sony speakers together to get B-roll with them, because I know it's going to be a problem. But finally, here's the microphone test. Now, the XE300 is facing directly at me, it's sitting on a tabletop, and is about 5 feet away from me. Now, the Charge 5 doesn't have a built-in microphone, and personally, I don't really think that matters. Now, overall, the microphone on the XE300 isn't awful, but I still wouldn't take phone calls with my speaker.
But with all that being said, if you're in the market for a mid-size speaker, and if you're trying to choose between the Charge 5 and Sony XE300, the Charge 5 is the way to go. It's not even close. With the Charge 5, you're going to get much better sound thanks to its dedicated woofer and tweeter setup. The Charge 5 sounds more open than the XE300, but also the Charge 5 gets noticeably louder than the XE300. And it also now has a customizable EQ. And with the Charge 5, you're getting a better sounding and louder speaker in a noticeably smaller package than the Sony XE300. If you made it this far, I guess you enjoyed the video, so hit the like button and get subscribed. If you want to pick any of the products up, they'll be linked down below. And if you want to further support the channel, check out the merch. I made some shirts and hoodies that look and feel great. And you know I can be very particular, so I'll only slap my name on something if I'm really proud of it.